And welcome aboard Don Quixote. We've had a few requests to show you around, so today's finally the day. I've been putting it off because it's never clean enough, tidy enough, and it's never the right time, but you can't see the mess really, so it's as tidy as it's ever going to be. Ready to come aboard? What are you waiting for?
Don Quixote is a 43-foot Morgan Centre Cockpit blue water capable cruiser. She's capable of extended trips out into the wild blue yonder and is a great vessel for exploring this big wide world. Dr. Jim spared no expense with this boat over the years, and he loved it like a child.
Years ago I discovered paradise on the water, and it was in the form of a sailboat, and I've been on sailboats since I was a child. And I found the best of all worlds here on this Morgan 43, and we've got wonderful, wonderful people who are going to love it and take care of it forever.
It was the perfect boat for us to buy.
Companionway, which leads straight into the galley. So this is the kitchen sink. This is where the magic happens. Not really. This is our manual pump in case our pump fails, our water pump fails, so that we can actually manually access our water. And it wasn't working initially, and Beef managed to get that sorted. We've also got a filter for drinking water, which is really good because we've been filling our water just from town water, filling our tanks, so it gets a little bit dirty. So occasionally, I know it's not great, but we do add a little bit of Clorox to the tanks just to kill any kind of bacteria that's growing in there. We have had an off-water tank when we got the boat from Jim. He had a feeling that we had some off-water and it smelled like kind of eggs, like off eggs. It was pretty bad.
I like eggs.
But we are on water restrictions, so that's been difficult for me because I'm
Why are we on water restrictions?
Because even though we've got 200 gallons, everything we use we have to replace. So it's not, you know, you are a lot more mindful of what you're using, and you know, so it's quick cleans. But this is also where I've taken to doing the washing as well.
And I have to carry every jerry can by hand.
And I have to help lift it onto the boat.
Yeah.
And I've got some storage underneath here. Got some cupboards, and usually when we're underway, I've got them closed, but I've just taken them off because we've been at anchor for a little while. This is the fridge here. So
how big is that fridge?
It's huge. It's a mess. It goes all the way to the bottom, and I've got a step here because I actually need it to get to the bottom of the fridge. So
is it pretty deep down there, is it?
It's deep, and it's pretty annoying actually. It's efficient, but it's annoying. Every time you want to get something, you got to go down the bottom, take everything out, put everything back in. So, and then it's your counter space too.
Jeez,
so you
sucks to be you sometimes, doesn't it?
Anything there.
Working hard.
Well, and then I've also got a freezer, which we didn't necessarily want, but we have. So it's pretty deep as well, and we've got a few things. We kind of mainly use it as a fridge, as a secondary fridge. The stuff up the top doesn't
is that an oven? Is that an oven I can see behind you?
Sure do. Cook like champs.
Sure do. Is that an oven I can see beside you? Sure do.
Sure is.
Sure is. How does that work?
So this is just a propane, it's a gas oven, and when we're underway, we've got it's gimbaled, so you can still cook when you're underway. And these little doohickeys here, they hold things in place, so you could actually have your cup of tea there, twist it, tighten it, and then with the gimbal on the stove, you could actually cook when you're on a lean. And
it looks like the oven's dancing, but it's actually not. We're the ones dancing.
Yeah. So also what we've got is I've got an oven, perfect for making bread, really nicely sealed. You can't make bread for crap. So
how often do you make bread?
I've had a few failed attempts.
If
anyone watching has some bread tips, and the easiest fail-proof, like even infants can make this kind of bread, please give it to me. I've even managed to stuff up beer bread, so not very good. What
else have we got in the kitchen here?
We're also usually always sprouting. I've got some alfalfa sprouts on the go.
I've been sprouting lately too. Hairs from my nose and ears.
And a couple of things that I have under there we've inherited. I inherited a boat full of cleaning products. Thanks, Jim. Got a Soda Stream. Got a NutriBullet as well. So Soda Stream's awesome.
You have all the mod cons.
And I asked you to leave me a can, but you didn't. I've also got a can crusher in here. So hoping to compact and minimize our waste as time goes by, but it's not really easy, and I feel bad throwing food scraps into the ocean. It's not ideal, but land waste, or I don't know, we're still working it out. So if you come around this way, this is our settees. Under here we had this is where I stored 9 or 10 cases of beer plus some canned goods.
Where are the beers gone?
Yeah, beef, where are the beers gone? So he drank most of those, so that's getting pretty empty. But also behind here we've got storage, so that's good for dry goods. And then under these settees, this actually moves out to a double bed, or a single, what would it be? A single bed.
You don't say.
And then under here we've actually got more fuel tanks. So we don't have any storage there, but we've got some more storage behind the cushions here. Up there we've got a lot of tarps and things we don't really use all that much. And we've got our 12-volt Marine TV here, our Majestic TV mounted. And
DVD player built in, mind you.
So fancy.
Is that a stereo I see?
Yeah, it is a stereo.
Have you got a subwoofer with that?
Have we got a subwoofer?
No.
Okay.
We don't have a subwoofer.
That's
but
a negative.
We can use it to crack manies with.
Here we've got a barometer, so we can actually gauge the barometric pressure, so we can see when it's dropping or falling.
Listen to you talking barometric pressure.
Which
Do you
will
even
be
know
handy
what you're talking about?
if we're trying to, feel out the weather and storms and stuff. And we've got our brass clock.
What time is it on the clock?
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
I thought we had it set to 4:20.
No, so it's 5 o'clock, but we did replace the motor and it stopped working, so that's just how it is. Sorry, Jim. We tried.
Okay, moving forward here. What else have we got in here?
Moving forward, we've got our head. So we've got the toilet with manual pump, and we've got our shower and a bit of storage behind there. This is the V-berth. It's a tiny quarters at the front of the ship.
AKA guest cabin.
Guest cabin, but right now it's kind of the activities hub. So we've got a rainwater catcher, we've got 3 surfboards, we've got our diving gear, spare towels, and so this is just a little snippet of what we use to make our videos, which admittedly will get better. It's a good starting point, but yeah, we'll improve. So anyways, we've got MacBook Pro, we've got an iPad, we've got both of our phones, which we don't use too much for filming. We've got 2 GoPros, we've got underwater housing and Aquatica underwater housing. We've got the old ancient Canon 7D cameras with a few different lenses. One of them is being used right now. We've got the DJI, the Phantom 4 drone. So this is what we use to get the footage that we've been showing you guys, and we try and exercise things quite a lot and get as much footage as we can. So thanks for watching. So this is the Nav Station, also known as the charging station. This is our 12-volt switchboard panel. So this is where we have all the lights, water pressure, we got shower pumps, we got our instruments, anchor light, search lights, autopilot, steaming lights, all that sort of stuff. Up here we've got our AIS, we've got our VHF radio, and we've got an M802 ICOM HF radio. So that's our HF MF radio. Down here we've got our 110 volt panel, so that's what the generator works off of, because we really don't go to shore very much. So when we're running the generator, then we can warm the water up for hot showers at night, and we can charge the batteries if the solar's not keeping up.
What's going on there behind you?
So that's our inverter.
EPIRB?
Oh, yep, we've got our EPIRB here, safety first, and actually, on that note, we've got a ditch bag. So that will be another episode of what's in our ditch bag, but if we were ever to need to suddenly leave the boat, this is what we'd grab. So this is,
so if you went to go get some eggs or bread, you'd take that with you?
If we had an emergency and we had to abandon ship while underway, this is what we'd grab and take with us. It's actually pretty heavy. Got reflective tape, some rope, and a little whistle there handy. And we'd also grab the EPIRB and anything else that we could get our hands on, really, quickly. This is the bedroom. This is the aft cabin, and this was the selling point of the Morgan Centre Cockpit for me. This is the selling point of Don Quixote. Everything that Jim did to the boat is all categorized in here. All the manuals, everything that he bought, all the receipts, everything like that. So that was also a good selling point, because we knew instantly, as soon as I saw this, I knew that this boat was loved and cared for. So thanks, Jim. We've got a couple of books that we're reading. Beef's taking a long time, not because it's not a great book, it is a fantastic book, but because he doesn't have time to read. And lin&larrypardy, as long as it is fun. Also a good book. This isn't really presentable right now because our aft head is actually our storage place. Like, have a look at the bathtub.
Hello, you handsome man.
Where are you taking us?
Just down below, downstairs. This is our bilge. This is what we check every day. Mop any bits of water out there. We've got 2 float switch bilge pumps. I also keep some spares on the side, different D-shackles and fittings and fixtures and stuff like that. Here's our battery monitors. We're running quite low at the moment. I'm about to run the generator for a little while because we've got a heap of cloud and we're running the fridge, so the batteries are low, but I'll fire the generator up soon for half an hour or an hour to top them up. This is our inverter, water alarm, temperature gauge for our generator hidden back there because we have to put a new one in. And then in here is where
the engine room,
the heart of the boat, really. We've got our Perkins 4108 diesel motor, also known as a Westerbeek. They're made by Westerbeek, but they're branded Perkins or vice versa. I've spent a lot of time getting to know this girl, and I love it, but I'm always careful to make sure she's got what she needs. Fire extinguisher. This is a halon system, so if there's a fire, this will, you hope, will turn on automatically and douse the engine room with douse the flames in the engine room if there ever were any. It's very important, they say, that if you do have a fire in your engine room, that you don't open your door, because if you do, then the oxygen will come in and make it worse. So if you have a fire in here, hopefully you can leave the doors closed. This just puts it out, and then you can deal with your multitude of problems you're going to have after that if you're still afloat.
What kind of a generator do we have?
It's a universal. I'm not sure the power output of it, but it's solid, it's big. The generator charge obviously powers our battery charger, and we have main 110 volt power in the power points as well. We've got 5 batteries in total. We've got 1 battery for the windlass up the front. We've got 1 starting battery back there. We've got a generator starting battery, and then we've got our house batteries. These are our house batteries down here. We have this one and we have another one under here, and they're called 4Ds. They're big, heavy batteries. They're about 200 amp hours each, I believe. Solid.
A little bit ashamed, but it's probably not surprising for those of you who know me that I avoid the engine room. I really need to know more about what's going on. I'm learning as much as you guys are probably right now. But as I say, it's Beef's full-time job, this working on the boat. He literally works on it like 10 hours a day.
No, that's not true.
But it's the smallest commute in the world. He takes 1 step out of the aft cabin and then he's in the garage.
This is my garage area. This is where I keep all my tools. I got grinders and drills and more tools. Then I've got fishing gear here, lures, rod,
Phil's lures?
Yeah, Phil's lures. Bolts, screws, nuts, all that. Down here, I have more stuff. We've got spare engine parts and belts and miscellaneous spares, spray things, hose clamps, fittings, greases, more tools, plumbing kits, spare O-rings and washers, spanners, socket sets, filter wrenches. Like, we've got enough tools on this to basically rebuild the whole boat if we have to. Here we have our Maxwell Capstan windlass. Basically the rope goes over the top, which we don't really use, chain comes around here, up and down switches. I tend to pull the anchor by hand most of the time because this is connected to its own battery and you need all the power you can get to pull the anchor off the floor. So most of the time Jana will motor forward slowly. I'll just pull in the slack chain by hand until it gets vertical and heavy, and then I quickly throw a wrap around this and then use the winch to pull it up off the ground. The Rockner is down doing its job right now, but it's a big, I don't know how many pounds, 70 pound Rockner is it? 33
kg.
I think it's a 33 kg or something like that. Big, and it just sits there nicely. We've got in-mast furling, which is good when it works, and it hasn't failed us yet, but if it ever does fail us I may end up regretting it. But we didn't have a choice, it's what the boat came with, and it's actually really good because you can control everything from the inside the cockpit here. You don't have to get up on deck. If it gets really windy and you've got too much sail out, you can, from the cockpit, you can reef it down. You basically just wind it up and it just furls into the mast. Sail comes in. The disadvantage of that, of an in-mast furler, is there's no place for battens, so it's not stiff. Most sails, a traditional method, have got battens running horizontally, which stiffens the sail. These haven't got that, but it's okay. We don't really miss it. We don't know any different. Yeah, the sail area is not massive. We haven't had to reef this main down yet. It seems like even when the winds are strong and full main sail out, it doesn't seem to be too overpowered at all, from what we've found. Maybe if the winds were 30 knots it might be. When we're going downwind, we tend to mainly just use the Genoa and not even use the main, because the main blankets it anyway a lot, and you run the risk of jibing, accidental jibe. So if the wind's sort of anywhere behind us and we're going downwind, we'll usually more than likely just roll out the big Genoa, and that's just a nice comfortable ride. This is our big mast. She's about 58 feet off the water, but there's a couple of aerials on top, so from the water line to the top of the mast is about 63 feet. So we only just sneak under those bridges in Florida, but it's a pretty tall rig really, but it's not too hard to handle, especially that main being not too big. It's quite comfortable. Flags, our courtesy Bahamian flag, our Tweed Valley Sailing Club Burgee. We originally wanted an aft cockpit boat, which is where you steer from the very back of the boat. But then once we started checking out centre cockpits, I kind of fell in love with them. I like the interior layout you get with the centre cockpit. You end up with a nice big aft cabin bedroom. And I just feel that in a centre cockpit, the motion of the boat isn't so bad. You're right in the middle. Centre cockpits, you just feel nice and safe. Like it's pretty hard to fall overboard in this enclosed area here.
And it's like the boat's giving you a hug or something.
Yeah, even when you're on a big lean, you're sort of locked in pretty well, and I like it. And even though it's a big boat, 43 footer, with a centre cockpit it doesn't feel that big. When you're driving boats that are aft cockpits, a 40 footer can feel massive because you're right at the back looking at this big boat in front of you, but here you're kind of in the middle of it and it doesn't feel overwhelming. It feels quite good. Got a Furuno nav net, which is paired up to one in the nav station. So this only works if the one down in the nav station's on, so they kind of work as a pair. We've also got a secondary one downstairs, which I'll show you. Here we've got our depth gauge with an alarm. This is our wind vane monitor, tell us which way the wind's coming in case you can't feel it, which you can, but it's sort of handy as well. Here we have our speed over water, our speedo, which just tells you how fast you're going through the water. It doesn't tell you how fast you're going over ground, but it's handy when you're traveling. You can look at your speed over ground on your plotter and your speed over water on this, and you can work out what sort of current you got with you or against you. Down here, this bad boy here is our trusty, well, formerly not so trusty, but now very trusty auto helm, Raymarine. I've had a few dramas with this. I've had to strip it down and clean all the brushes, and it kept going up. It kept coming up auto stop and turning off at the worst possible moments. You'd be doing
like that time we accidentally tacked.
Yeah, it was holding a course, and then all of a sudden it would just stop, and then the boat would round up or bear away, and then the boat, it was a nightmare. But we fixed that, so she's pretty good to go now. 400 watt panels, Renogy. They're a pain in the ass of a company to deal with. I can't recommend them at all. The panels are not too bad, but Renogy customer support were dog shit. They didn't even, we had a heap of hassles with them. They sent the wrong parts, and they sent new parts that weren't right, and things were missing. And but anyway, they're hooked up now. They go pretty good, but we wish we had more, because you can never have enough power, it seems, when you've got a fridge that draws like 20 amps constantly on startup and about 15 once it's going. Trusty outboard motor mount, that's important, have that nice and solid. This is our little davit crane, and the other day we were using it and there was an attachment here that snapped and the motor dropped about this far, but luckily it dropped onto the transom of the boat, but it was a tense moment, that's for sure. This is me fishing right here. Sometimes we see fish swim past and I just grab it and whooshka, and I never get them. Very occasionally I do get them. Barbecue's good. Barbecue's a little beauty. She's all cleaned up right now. Little screw canister under there, good for throwing shrimps on. Here, this is where we keep our, Australians would call it gas bottles, but over here they call it propane. This is our propane tanks right here, y'all. And not so easy to fill these up around here. You gotta go all the way to Marsh Harbour. But they're only 10 bucks each to fill, so that's not too bad. Here's where I keep all my assorted lengths of dental floss. Just so, yeah, you don't want to let that food sit in your teeth for too long. So here we've got our little life slings. Hope we never have to use them. Over here I've got a spare Danforth anchor. I only used it a couple of times when we were in the double-breasted Keys and we had to put a stern and bow anchor off to stop us swinging. This is our aft lazarette locker. Looks like it's pretty small, but that's actually about 6 foot deep there. And we've got fuel in there, tarps, spare anchor ropes, life jackets, fuel tanks. There's 2 fuel tanks in there. Our port and starboard aft tanks are in there, which you fill up from these 2 ports. Here we have our pizza boxes. That's a sign that we didn't want to cook the other night and we just dinghied ashore, walked over here, got a couple of pizzas, and by the time we got back to the boat they were still hot. Not bad at all. So these got to go in the dinghy.
What do you got in the dinghy?
Dinghy, I got water tanks, fuel tanks, life jackets, anchors, a pump, just stuff like that. A couple of torches, things that you might need in case you, a couple of oars. Awesome.
Well guys, thanks so much for coming in and having a look at Don Quixote. We really appreciate you taking the time to have a look around. It's been awesome to show her to you. So hopefully for the future episodes you've got a bit more of an idea about where things are and what we're doing too.
And maybe sometime in the future some of you can come and join us on little adventures somewhere.
Sounds good.
You'll know your way around already.
Till next time.
So getting back to this engine room here, this Perkins 4108 here, it's got like 50 horsepower and she's a little beauty. She leaks a bit of oil. I've done a fair bit of maintenance on it, changing belts and filters constantly and wiping oil leaks, but they're super reliable. They're a UK built motor. Best thing about it is you've only just got to look at it and it'll start. Like, see? I'm not joking, it's pretty reliable.